Well, hi everyone, this is Caroline,
And this is Kurt.
and welcome to our podcast, The Business of.
Christmas.
Welcome to another episode of our podcast, and this background is definitely different to what you normally see on our podcast, and that's because today we are here in Houston, Texas, with the one and only Regina Gust. Good morning or good afternoon, Regina.
Hi, thank you for having me.
No, thank you for having us. Me
Oh.
and Kurt, we were so excited
Very excited to be here.
We could come and do this. And I think sometimes when we're doing our podcasts, it's a little bit stagnant, you know, because everyone's seeing the same thing behind. So to be able to come in here, and I've been in here before, and you have a beautiful showroom.
Thank you.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
And it's very inspirational when I come in here. So I get all kinds of really cool ideas.
Oh, that's a lot coming from you. Thank you.
No.
That makes me feel good.
So for the audience, I've known Regina now maybe 6-7 years. I can't remember where we met. Who knows? I don't remember. But anybody that knows Regina, you should definitely follow her. She has a great Instagram and great social media. But yeah, excited to be here. So we thought that we'd spend the next, we're going to run 2 podcasts from this, but the next really half an hour talking about, like, how did you get started in this business, Regina? What made you Houston's Christmas queen?
Well, for those who don't know me, I have a twin sister, Janet Gust, and she and I started our business as interior designers, very young. And, we were just trying to figure out what we were going to do. And around Christmas time, we were kind of starving and decided we'd go into Christmas. And in our first job was a commercial job. It was a 20-foot tree, and
Wow.
the client told us she had a $12,000 budget back then. And my sister and I were like, oh yeah, we can do that. We had no idea what we were doing. She told us we needed scaffolding, and we're like, oh sure. And we get out to the car, and I look at her and I go, what is scaffolding? And anyway, it turned into a really awesome business, and each year it just started growing more and more. It's funny, when I started my business back then, there wasn't that much availability with ornaments and filler and types of Christmas trees, and so being really creative was something you really had to do back then. And anyway, it's just in a business that I've watched it grow over the years, and the availability of or just what's out there, and the Christmas trees, the garlands, like in Fickerman art, they look so real now.
Sure.
And the lights, even the LED lights that don't go out like the incandescent did, and so it's just gotten better and better. But just getting into the Christmas, I really, really enjoyed it, and it feeds my soul when we walk away from a job, and it's interior design is a very long-lasting job, and it's a job that can last for years. I call it the never-ending job. And Christmas is something that you go in and you can decorate a house in 1 or 2 days, and it's quick, it's fast, it's a happy time of the year, and it's just, it really feeds my soul to walk away from a job and see my client really happy, and I love it. It's in every year I look so forward, as soon as Christmas is over, to the next year, and going to market and seeing all the new product and what am I going to do next year. Of course, I'm exhausted going, I'm never doing this again, but 30 years later, I'm still doing it, and I love it. It's something that I think it's a very rewarding business.
I really understand what you mean by that, because I've been in the industry on and off for about 25 years, and people ask you what you do. You meet them on a plane, or and they'll go, well, what do you do? And I go, well, I'm in the Christmas business. And they always go, what do you do the rest of the year? And I'm
Exactly.
like, yeah, like 365
Oh, my
years.
God.
They're like, that's a business?
Yeah, exactly. But there's not many people, I think, in this world that can really truly say they truly love what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I know that you do, and
Yeah.
I'm super blessed that I get to do something I love every day, and I know you love this industry too,
absolutely.
Kurt.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like it's a job half the time. I mean, I know it is, and
Yeah.
we work very hard, But the reality is, when you're installing, or in our case, when we've delivered a finished product, and I'm seeing my customers send photos, it's
It's a great feeling.
It is a great
Yeah.
feeling. It's just yeah, and I've been in hotels doing installs in years past, and the family can't wait for the tree to be finished because they want to take a photo, right?
Oh,
and,
yeah.
it is. It's very heartwarming. It really is. It does feed your soul for sure.
does,
I love
it
the way
does.
you say
So
that.
Regina, how long have you been in the business? Did you say how many years?
I think it's been 30 years. I hate
That's
to say that.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I think so, yeah.
And is your sister still in the business, or she work
Oh,
with
yeah.
you, or?
She does interior design.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, she has her own
how many
pillow
jobs a
line.
year do you do, just for our
About
listeners?
100.
Okay, yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow. And you do a mix. I know, often on your social media posts, we see a lot of beautiful, fireplaces and homes, but I know really your number one is commercial.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you, so what do you think between the two? Like, what do you prefer and why?
Well, I really I enjoy both of them. I think commercial is, it's not necessarily easier, but it's contracts, and I think it's smarter because it creates cash flow
For sure.
throughout the year, because you do have these contracts, and the hardest part of commercial is the beginning of the design part and deciding what you're going to do, and then these people have to live with this design for the next 3 years, which but I like the commercial side because it challenges me a little bit more, because sometimes you may have this beautiful wall that there's no way you can put any type of anchor into it, so you have to come up with something that's going to
Sure.
brighten up this lobby and make this lobby beautiful. And the residential side of it is, well, with the commercial, I think you get it right, you don't really hear from them, and they're pretty much, that's off their plate.
Yeah.
And it's like that they can check that off as long as you do a good job, and if you mess up, you fix it. That's all they, it's all about just getting it done and getting it done right. And then with the residential, it's a little bit more personable, and sometimes you do deal with clients' personable items. And if you're doing their whole house, they may say, I want my Christmas tree done, but I want you to use my ornaments, but I still want a designer look. So you have to marry those and pull that off. I think we've talked about that
Sure.
before, Kurt. And but the residential is it is a little bit more challenging because it's and you're in someone's home, and it's their private place, and but to me, the residential, you have you can use so many different color palettes, and you can do the pinks, you can do the newest, whatever is going on in the interior design world, you can complement that. You can do the same with commercial, but you're still kind of limited. But with the residential, I feel like you can do a little bit more. I think you can do, what's the word? I just think you can be a little bit more, what's the word I'm trying to use?
I don't know.
Designs.
So when I think about your residential, and when I see photos or videos of your residential, you have the opportunity to use really high-end glass ornaments,
Right.
maybe hand-painted German,
Yeah.
beautiful stuff.
Very bespoke, I think is the
Bespoke
word
is a
I'm
good
thinking.
word.
Yeah.
But, as you're talking, I'm wondering, taking it back to the financial piece, how does the budgets differ from a commercial job? What are the size average jobs of those versus a residential?
So, well, with a commercial job, you have a budget, and because it is a 3-year install, what I typically do is I will put 80% of the cost of the job with materials and labor up front, and then the next 2 years, I will apply 20% of that as my labor, storage, what have you, transportation.
Sure.
And the rest will be the profit. So up front with the commercial, you're obviously spending more money, but you get to extend that out for 3 years in most situations. With residential, they expect to pay and get top quality on a mantelpiece. My average mantelpiece is about $2,000 to $2,500, and you're not typically going to do that in a residential because you're not always, I mean, in
In
a commercial,
commercial, yeah.
because you're not always going to be using glass. So, and there's not usually manels in commercial companies anyway, but the trees are the same. And so with, you can spend a little bit more money, in my opinion, in residential because they're expecting it. They are expecting the German glass. I use a lot of Jim Marvin ornaments, and they're the glass. And, you know, with my commercial, I use a lot of the Vickerman, especially with your new pearl finish, which I absolutely love.
Fantastic.
Knock that out of the park. And
Yes, it's beautiful.
right, and so I think, you know, you can get away. Residential is going to be a little bit more expensive, you know. But when I'm doing a job, I do put a little bit of glass in my commercial businesses, because my commercial
I know
applications.
you do, and I'm always like, oh my goodness.
But,
it does set it apart.
It does.
Definitely.
It does. It illuminates and gives it that sheen, and even if it's just a clear glass ball, it really takes your tree to the next level, because when the lights hit it, it illuminates. And I think a lot of people, you have to take more time when you're installing it, and you have to take more time when you're taking it down. And not all companies that do commercial design really have that type of person that's, they're more about getting in there, getting it up, and moving on to the next job. And I'm more about, you know, you got to have somebody that's going to install the glass balls, and somebody that's going to come back and take them down, tissue them up, so they'll be there for the next
So
second and
question,
third year.
how many ornaments do you break a year, would you say?
That's a great question.
Seriously,
Me,
right?
I was
me
thinking
personally, none.
Is it like 5%?
Your team.
Or?
How many your team?
Believe it or not, I mean, maybe, I don't know, if let's take it by a job.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two. On residential, there's most jobs none.
Yeah.
But
Maybe you're a
every
little
now and then
extra
it's one or
careful.
two.
I know.
And
Do you tell your install team, your design team, like, no breaking of the ornaments? And yeah, I just, yeah.
no,
Yeah.
they kind of know. They kind of know.
They're expensive, right?
They
Yeah,
are,
and
for
we
sure.
have a technique, and when we put them on, we do wire them with a special wire, and so we know that when that
Once they're on there, they're not going
yeah,
anywhere.
yeah.
Right?
I mean, people know. Not even if it's somebody new working for me, they learn from others. I'm very hands-on in my business, especially with new installs, and especially with new people. They learn from others, but they learn real quick how to put an ornament on and how to take it off.
For sure.
And it's not brain surgery. It's you know, it's just be careful. It's glass, and yeah.
Sure, we've definitely gone into the different materials, but I just want to make sure, are we looking at, so after 30 years, are you more interested in $50,000 commercial jobs, or is it 10, or is it just based on what kind of profit margin, if you're using your product that you have available to use? How do you decide, do you do the 5,000 commercial, are you looking for 20,000? What does that look like for Regina Gust Design?
So I can't do $5,000 jobs. It's just it's really hard to do a
Right.
job.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, but I have a perfect example right now. They're the same management company, and the buildings are right next door to each other, and their budgets are not very high. But I can do both of those jobs in one day with the same team, so it's worth doing those two jobs
Because they're next
because
door to each
combined,
other, right?
yeah.
So
Whereas
you're not driving across town.
exactly,
to
whereas there's
job.
another job that's probably the same amount of trees and probably not quite as big a budget, and so you really, I kind of look at it as it's a numbers game for sure.
Sure.
Right? And it's you don't want your people sitting around doing nothing.
Right.
And so what I've done, you know, that's really smart, I think, and I think people are more willing to do this now, is I start my season really early. So I start November 1st. And with that, it's not residential, it's commercial. And so the commercial people know that, you know, especially I've had one job that I've had for 6 years. We're going on our 7th year, and I'm like, your budget has not gone up, and my Penske rental truck has doubled.
Yeah.
My labor's gotten more expensive, and you guys have not, you know, increased your budget, but they can't. And so, well, I'm going to do less, but I'm still going to do a beautiful job for you. I just am going to be more set and go instead of on the job, you know, doing a lot of stuff on the job. So to me, it's still a very important, it's still a job that I'm going to make money on.
Sure.
And you know, I'm not going to take a job that I don't make money on. But if I can throw in a $7,000 to $10,000 job in with another $10,000 job that's 20, you know, in a day, then it's worth it. Of course, I like the 50. You know, I love the
That's great
$50,000 jobs, and I love, you know, the $100,000 jobs. But at the end of the day, those jobs still take the same amount of time and the same amount of people.
For sure.
You know, you've got your sweet spot. A $20,000 job is a sweet spot. A $10,000 job is an okay job.
Yeah.
You can do two $10,000 jobs in a day, and have a $20,000 day. And so,
It's great.
yeah, and it's the beauty of commercial. I have to
Yeah.
give away all my secrets here, but
No, but I mean, but you're right.
No, I think that's great
yeah.
for everyone to hear, though. If somebody's getting into this business, I mean, it takes a lot of experience to do this or to learn these things. I mean, it's
Yeah.
taken you 30 years to learn what that sweet
Yeah.
spot is.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how I used to do it. I just fly by the seat of my pants. I had no idea what my labor was, but I'd do one job a day, and I'd have my team, and we'd just go from day to day to day. And you know, now I've really developed like really amazing spreadsheets that's taking years to figure out. I mean, how many people are on a job, how much are you paying on a job? I mean, getting a creative person to write down their hours for the day and what they did, and teaching them how to do that is like,
Pulling teeth.
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And so getting people to accumulate the information on what you're putting in a job and who's on the job, you know. And I figured out an average day. I mean, I think in any business you kind of have an average of what your labor is. And once you figure that out, you can just run with it.
Yeah.
And that's how you can do more jobs in a day, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely.
I
Thank you for that.
yeah.
I appreciate
No,
the
I
information.
remember, and you may not remember, the first time I came to your office, I was actually physically in your office, and we were talking about costing jobs. And I remember you saying to me, sometimes I don't really know what the true cost, and we had a whole
Yeah.
conversation about, because you just said it a few minutes ago, you said, I am not going to do a job if I'm not making like money.
Yeah.
And when we say making money, like a good margin, right? Because and this is what I find with a lot of people in the commercial Christmas, well, in the Christmas industry, they don't know their true costs, and they're looking at the cost of the
Yeah.
product, but they're
Right.
not thinking about the labor portion. And when we talk about the labor portion, we're talking about like the drive time, the install time, the drive back, the putting away all of the storage boxes,
Exactly.
all of that good stuff.
Exactly.
And it's much more than being in a building or being in somebody's home, and it's charging and making sure that those markups are really,
Yeah,
really
and
good.
once you figure that out, you
Yeah.
will be surprised. It is pretty much about the same on any job.
For sure,
It really is.
Yeah.
But you know, you have to think about transportation. You have to think about the designing of the job, the pulling for the job, the getting there, installing it, and then once you do the job, it's bringing it back, and people at your warehouse, and you have to think about. So that's why I did a marketing video this year, because I think people think, like you were saying, oh, I do Christmas decorating. Oh, you only work 3 months out of the year? No, I work 12 months out of the year. Like, it's not that.
Yeah, I see you in January starting. Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it starts. It's
For the
up.
next year, you're
Granted,
starting.
it's not as stressful.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Sure. Yeah.
but that's why it's such a great job.
But you have to plan in advance, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have a lot of planning,
Yeah.
organizing, and depending on people. I think people are one of the hardest things to grow your company is depending on people.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, I mean, we know you, so we've talked to you about this, but having those people you worked with for years is part of your success as well. Everything you've learned, your system, those same people coming back every year to help you.
Yeah.
That's been a huge part of it as well, correct? You've got a good team.
Like with your designers, I mean, your production people are just as important as your designers. And when a designer works for me, it usually takes a year or two to really learn my style. They're probably a really good designer when they walk in my door, but I still have a certain technique and style that I like, and that I know that the client that hires me is hiring me for. And so once they learn my style, then having someone like that on your team, you really pretty much can tell them what's going on that mantle or that tree, and they already know. And so having people like that work for you, and then the production side of it, people that know to cover up cords and to how to set the tree up, and the electrical part is a huge part of your job,
Yeah.
knowing that and just how to hang a wreath, and all of that is really important. And but your team is if you don't have a good team, you
Well,
can't
that's
grow.
a key to your success, right?
Yes.
I mean, really.
Yes.
I mean, for sure.
Yeah.
So-
I can't even make a bow anymore. But I
So-
can tell you how to make a bow.
So you may not think about this, Regina, but I think Caroline and I both think about this because we've both been through this, and more Caroline recently again. But I'm hearing the Regina way, right? The Regina Gust way.
Oh, for
yeah,
sure.
That's what you're doing. That's what you've learned
Yeah.
over the last 30 years. How long does it take for a new person to learn your way? You just mentioned a new designer. Was it 2 years to learn?
First year is really tough, and it's intimidating. And not that I'm trying to be that way. I think it's just intimidating because you come into
Sure.
all this awesome product, and there's like, oh my gosh, where do I start? What do I do? And it's overwhelming. And so it's once you get past that, and then it's like watching other people that work for me, looking at their techniques and what they do. And so I would say a good 2 seasons probably. And one thing I'm really what I love to watch and see is when I have creative people working for me, how they feed off each other. I mean, I was bidding on a job the other day, and somebody said, oh, what about this wave, turning the chandelier into a wave to hang, and we did it at Four Seasons. And I'm like, I never thought about that. And it's just like when you put people together that are creative,
people, right?
then
Yeah.
what what you may have seen at market or thinking, and you saw something and you combine that. So I love watching creative people learn from each other, and that's how you become more and more successful. Is feeding off. It's not about like, oh, this is my design, I'm not showing you how to do this. It's about learning from each other and saying, oh, I never thought about doing it like that. And I love seeing that. I love
Sure.
seeing my team do that and teach each other.
And seeing people grow.
Yeah.
Because even at Seasonscapes, like we have a core people, and I don't know, but they come back every year, just like your staff. But you've trained them. Maybe they've never even decorated a tree except in their house, and and then the following year sometimes you lose people, unfortunately, because
Yeah.
you hate that, because there's so much
Right.
effort and time and love and passion that goes into training.
Yeah.
And you hope that you don't lose people, but life is life. And then you bring a new person in, and you don't really know initially. They can show you pictures of maybe what they've done at their house.
Right.
That's often when I interview, they'll go, oh, look, I did my grandma's tree, or I did my aunt's tree. And
Yeah.
you can kind of see if they have a style, but until they're actually physically like there. And then the other thing is like, how do you get them to come back every year? Because you don't want them to learn your style and then take it
Right.
with them. And, it's risky when that happens, I think.
I mean, I think in our industry, it's especially with someone like me, and it's even in the floral industry, it's a very small industry, and you kind of like take care of each other, and there's enough business out there for everybody.
Yep.
And so to me, it's like what you guys are trying to do is educate and teach people. And we want to be good, and we want to teach people how to charge. What you want people to learn that kind of stuff. And I think just from when I first started in the industry, seeing there was just 1 or 2 vendors that had filler, and now you have lots of options. And so, but everybody learns from each other, and then there's enough stuff to go around. There's enough people to go around. There's enough jobs to go around. And it's just, you want people doing a great job. And like I said, it all goes down to, I'll look at people's Instagrams and go, oh my God, I never thought about doing that. That's so cool. And so you're constantly evolving, and
For sure. And I think, you've just hit on something that I think it's always important to talk about is, we are a small business. We're really not, because there's people that do commercial and residential decorating in every single city across the United States, well, in the world, right? As long as they're celebrating,
Yeah.
the holidays. but it's how do we all charge appropriately?
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than somebody, like, we all know that sometimes we get underbid, right, on projects and things like
Right.
that. You know, somebody's like, well, I'm going to go with them because they were
Yeah.
$500 or
business.
$1,000, and that is
Yeah.
business. But it's really knowing your worth
Yeah.
and educating the community out there, like, that purchase Christmas, that this is a profession,
Right.
and we're not just some like
It's-
part-time people that just throws a few trees up at Christmas.
You
and
nailed
walks
it on the
away.
head, Caroline. That's
Yeah.
why I did this marketing video, is educating the people that are hiring us and what goes on behind the scene.
Yeah.
You nailed that on the head. And so, there's so many different, like the interior design world, we are a lot like interior designers now, and they have, their ASID, and they teach people how to charge. I was listening to something today, and she's like, do not back out your time. Your time is valuable.
Absolutely.
And the years and years that you have put into learning
Absolutely.
about different vendors, who's the best, what can who's got this, going to market, you
all
guys
an
go to
investment.
Europe. It's an
Absolutely.
investment. And you're learning, and you don't learn that overnight. What kind of garland is good for this particular type of project. That is valuable. And your client's hiring you because you are the best, and you are bringing to them what you went out and educated yourself on. And so it, like with interior designers, for instance, they always have this challenge of, do I charge by the hour or do I charge by the job? I mean, by a percentage, and to me, you have to learn how to split that up. And because your design time is really important.
sure.
And sometimes you can't put your design time in there because there's a budget, but you do need to allocate an expense. You need to back it out. Because
Yeah.
on every job, I put at least 5 hours of my design time at $250 an hour. Because my time
great
is
information.
really valuable.
Absolutely.
And sometimes you don't get those jobs. You're spending all that time
Yeah.
designing. You're doing the renderings,
Right.
or however you're
You
presenting.
don't always get that
and
money.
you don't get it.
You don't get that
Absolutely,
money
yeah.
back. You do not, people in the commercial industry, I find, are not going to give you that. You can't put that as a line item, your design time, but you
I
do.
was going to say, do you charge for
No.
that? You don't. Okay.
No, I do with residential, and
Good.
they're totally okay with it. They expect it. They expect it out of their interior designer, and they expect it out of you. And it goes down to how you educate them.
Yeah.
And people. I mean, if it was me personally and someone was coming to my house, I would want to know what they were doing, what they're charging me for, and material wise,
Sure.
and what my the transportation charges. I want to know, and so we could talk a lot about charging. I feel like I do a pretty good job. I feel like I've learned a lot over the years.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
hard. It's challenging.
Yeah, it is, and I think Kurt and I have said this on other podcasts. It's this is why we're trying to create this community, because there's so many of us that have been in the industry a long time, and none of us mind sharing. I mean, certainly there's some secrets we
Right,
never want to
yeah.
give up, right, Regina?
Exactly, yeah.
There's some, because we all have our own little certain ways of doing things. But if there was something like this, if there was a platform like this,
Yes.
25 or 30 years ago,
Oh yes.
just imagine where your business would have
Oh.
been. Maybe right now it might be double the size, for instance, because
yes.
you wouldn't have had to learn those lessons yourself, right?
Oh, yes.
So yeah,
Oh,
it's
yes.
kind of interesting. So
I remember my sister and I, it was an interior design job. And again, we were really young, starting our business. And we had this wealthy gentleman that was wanting us to do his house. And we drove up, and we were sitting in the driveway going, how do we charge this guy? What do we charge this guy? Like, I don't know. You're supposed to know that. It's like
does he look like he can afford
we had-
$5,000?
We had no idea how to
know.
charge this guy. Even the first time I went to Dallas to market, you walk into the big atrium, right, and you're going,
You
you're
look
just
up, right?
looking around, going, where do I start? And then you walk into a showroom, and back then they didn't have the scanners and all that, and you have no idea. You don't know if these people are going to be nice to you, how they're going to treat you that work in the showrooms. And you're like, I'm a Christmas designer, and I want to buy a product. It's overwhelming to go. If it has the the quantity and the quality, the number. It's like, if you don't know,
And what's your minimum order, right? Yeah.
it is so overwhelming, and and no one taught me that. I had to figure that out on my own. But whatever, we did it. But I mean, I'm sure y'all remember those days, right?
I do. Yeah, 7 years ago for me when I went through this experience.
Yeah.
And it's exactly what you're describing.
Yeah. I feel like I think the three of us actually could teach a class on going to market, whether it be Atlanta or Dallas, and we maybe need to focus on that. Like,
I think you should.
Like in November when we have plenty of time to do that. Right?
Okay. Yeah. Right. Oh, November. Yeah.
Yeah. No. So that bell that you just heard was kind of the end of 30 minutes. So we're going to wrap this. It was. We're going to wrap this podcast up. We're going to take a break. We're going to re-record. Not sure when you'll see the second one, but thank you for watching. Regina, thank you for your insight. We're looking forward to more.
Really fun.
We've enjoyed talking with you today, and definitely ready to cover more topics.
We could talk for hours.
Oh, yes,
right?
for sure. Thanks.
Thanks.